I'm Tasha. Hi, everybody. It's Challenge Day, Navigating Challenge here at Sedona Center for Harmony and Enrichment. We're going to come to you monthly with this roundtable discussion, or as Wendy and I were talking about, this rectangular discussion, because today it's Wendy and I. And I believe in a couple of minutes we're going to be joined by Faye Anaya from last month. So, okay, so we were talking about time and the challenges around time and timing, especially during this pandemic. Talking about things that happened in March and how many months ago was this? You know, people are sitting counting, oh my gosh, how long ago was that? We're already in August, another month and we'll be in the fall. For me, timing is all very challenging lately because I'm a timekeeper. I pay attention to the time. I'm on time. I go to things timely. I'm always making sure, very grounded, keeping it all together. And that's just not a thing these days. There's a lot of people who just are not. We're noticing that people sign up for Zoom and may not show up. We're noticing people sign up for, well, actually, we're noticing that people are signing up now for classes as long as they're social distancing. So that's actually a really good feeling, quite honestly. Kind of those gatherings again, the social thing that we all need as humans. So welcome back to that. Thank you. Anyway, talking about time, and Wendy and I discussing this for a little while, I found that she actually does things slightly differently that might resonate with some of you, and I'd love her to explain it. So go ahead, Wendy.
Well, when you were talking earlier about how you feel like you're the timekeeper, you always know what time it is, you know when you need to be places and when things are starting.
Yeah.
What was jumping into my mind was how people, I think, because it's uncertain, they're more into this fluidity of time. Like, yeah, let's tentatively, maybe if they were planners, they're like, let's tentatively make this plan because maybe my new now that I find myself in, that I didn't know I was going to find myself in 10 minutes ago, is taking me in this direction. And in regards to people signing up for things, but not necessarily jumping on, I think definitely because so many unknowns might come in, right, they're all happy about the replay. They're like, good, there's a replay. Or, you know, maybe there isn't, but in the back of their heads, they're like, oh, okay, well, I can get that at a later time on my own time.
Yeah.
With this whole everybody being home for all those months, there have been a lot more online classes where people can do it at their own pace. And I think now that it's been in existence, but now that there are more people experiencing that, they're taking that into daily life, perhaps.
I see that. I do see that a lot more. Thank you for bringing that up. I've been on a few webinars recently where immediately in the chat bar you see at least 3 or 4 people say, is there a recording on this? Are you going to send this out? And it may be because they can't spend the entire time on it, and it may be because they just want to review it again later. So I agree. I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
That's also, I'm noticing an increase of YouTube writing out the transcripts, or video presentations writing out the transcripts, because maybe you have a 10-minute YouTube presentation and the person is interested in it, but maybe they're trying to catch it when they don't exactly have time to watch it or listen to it, but they can scan the conversation in a written text and then get the gist of it, or make notes or something and be like, oh, I can watch that later, or hey, I got enough of it. I think a lot of people there's lots of news, and there's this smaller amount of time that people are choosing to focus on that. So they want the Cliff Notes. There are a lot more apps that give you the news in smaller bites, and then if you're interested, you click on it and then it gives you the whole story. So people taking charge of their own time, I think, is a new and major new flow, I would have to say. And last year I got into galactic time through the lawoftime.org, and it's based on a conglomeration of Mayan calendars by the gentleman who masterminded the original harmonic convergence. And by realizing that things are cyclical, every new year starts in July 26th, technically. So from July 26th till this year, I've studied it for a year. I've lived like that for a year. And the Gregorian calendar sort of, it's a secondary to me now. I've even switched on my phone. You know, everybody has an option to switch. What day of the week do you want your calendar to start on? I'm like, well, what day of the week do I tend to do things that I would need to know about? So in my world, because I do weekend, like a tourist city kind of starts on Thursday. Thursdays are our Mondays. So I do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I have it on in my phone that the first day of my week is on a Thursday. And it just shifts. It just makes you realize, oh, this clock thing is a program. This calendar thing is a program. Let's see what life feels like if I follow this other program. So I never really know what day it is. According to like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's a secondary thing I have to look up. The date may or may not be a thing either, but I do know every day what energy center is prominent that day. I do know what different galactic tones are useful for that day, which is perfect being a sound healer. You know? I can incorporate that into my life. I can share it with people and incorporate it into the lounges and just different things, music. And another portion of that is these glyphs, these Mayan glyphs. And they're not really, nobody's going to tell you what they mean. There's a general, you know, there's a general bit, but the interpretation is up to you. And every 13 days, you know, you're going to hit the same tone again, and you're going to be able to face the same energy at a different octave. Like, oh, okay, what does today's Tuesday feel like from the octave of an overtone, from the octave of a solar tone or a lunar tone? And so I don't super try and plan things anymore. And I used to be just exactly like you were talking about, Tasha. I knew what time it was. I knew exactly how long it takes to get from point A to point B. I knew how much I could get done in that period of time before I had to be somewhere. Although even then, if I had to be somewhere at like 9 o'clock, and something had my attention at 8:55, I would always have it in my head that I could stretch time and I could get both done and I could get to where I needed to by the time I needed to, and I'd always be late. But I would have accomplished the thing, which obviously in my mind felt more important than arriving somewhere right on time. I was always like, it's 5 minutes, it's 10 minutes. Is the world gonna stop if I'm 15 minutes late? No. But if I'm hiking at 5:30 in the morning, I'm hiking. I'm like 5:30. I'm going without you if you're not here. So for some reason, I still stick with that because that has to do with weather. And even our hiking group has started to use time in terms of weather. We're like, let's meet at 99. When it's 99 degrees, we'll go out. When it's actually, it's only been 99. So we're like, doesn't matter what time it is, we're not hiking until it gets down to 99. And that's usually like the evening kind of scenario. So that's been a new thing this last month of kind of swapping out time for a different element instead of a time. And everybody kind of comes together and it's when it's supposed to happen, really. Yes, that's how I've been seeing it lately.
Guaranteed there's a lot of people who resonate with that, and I really like it. I think it's fascinating. And thank you for explaining the galactic calendar a lot more. and saying where people can learn more about it, because it really truly has been more in the awareness lately than I've ever noticed before. So you brought it to my attention, and then it seemed like everywhere I looked, it was a discussion.
Well, they're bringing it that. Hi, Faye.
Hi.
That foundation is bringing it into people's awareness a lot. There's been a big push this last year, and a lot more people are gravitating to it because they've had time to. They didn't have to be at work at a certain, like March, April, when people had to be at home. It's growing. Like that whole thing, I've seen a jump in it. So I was glad that I got into it last year, because now that I'm doing my second cycle of it, it can go really deep. So I kind of got myself an overview of it last year, and now this year I'm like, okay, now what can I learn since I'm going through it again? This first month is what is my purpose? The second month every year is what is my challenge? You know, each month has a question for you to ask yourself every day from a different harmonic. It's really interesting.
And so August is what is my challenge?
I wouldn't say it's August. Their months go from moon to moon.
So, okay.
So it's technically like, it's like July 26th to I think like August 22nd is the first moon month.
Okay.
Month of the bat. So I'm like, okay, this year I'm gonna, if it's the bat energy, what are bats about? You know, so you learn just different little things that resonate with you that time. Last year I didn't care about learning the bat. I'm like, what is this whole system? But now I'm like, okay, there's an element that I haven't looked at yet. Let's check into that. So yeah, the month of what is my purpose.
Okay, perfect. How perfect right now, right? So Faye, we're talking about the galactic calendar. Wendy kind of got started on it a little over a year ago. I think it was a little over a year ago, wasn't it?
It was luckily exactly it was the day that it started last year, because I had kind of seen it over the years, but it was way into it, and it last year started. My interest of it started on the first day of the new year. I'm like, perfect. I'll be able to follow along in order.
Even better. First day of the new year. I love that. So she was explaining a little bit more so that people knew how to find out more about it, or come to her to find out more about it as well.
Nice.
So we started with talking about just timing in general and how that's been a challenge for a lot of people during this pandemic. But I love the insights of the galactic calendar and how it lets you flow a little bit more than our regular Gregorian calendar.
Cool.
Yeah. So hello. Are you having any time constraints or anything that's been a challenge for you?
Time in general seems off here lately with the different energy influxes. It's like time seems to be going by really fast, but when I look over the last week, I'm like, wow, a lot happened. It feels like it was a month ago. So it's been interesting to just flow with it as it happens.
So it seems like everybody's talking about flow, right? And maybe it's time for that, because we have been so rush. I mean, we're not so much as like maybe New York, LA, San Diego even, but it does seem like matriarchal, you know, the more we actually get a little bit more towards the feminine, we flow, and it is more about flow. So sounds like I need to work with my challenge about being that timekeeper. So jump in, anyone, any of the three of us, if you want to bring up another challenge, something that we might be able to help our general audience, all of our peoples.
In regards to time?
Anything, actually, anything that's up in the world right now. Wendy and I were talking a little while ago about how the elections and things coming up, and how timing around that even is all funky, you know, just to hear all the arguments and all the people back and forth about what this means, and having our mayoral election recently. And I know a lot of people who forgot that that was election day that day.
Oh, wow.
A lot of people who sent in their early ballots. I know a lot of people who went to vote. So, but it's just odd. There's just a lot of stuff out there right now that's up in the air. Yeah. So anything, it doesn't have to be around time.
Okay, so what comes up for me right now, I'm seeing is grounding and being out in nature, I think is more important now than ever because there are so many ideas and so many things going on, like you said, in the politics within government, that it can be so overwhelming that people can go into like this feeling of overwhelm and taking it all in. And the quickest way I have found to purge all of that is to go out into nature, to go barefoot in the red rock, to go hug a tree if you want to, or just go put your hand on it, you know, and feel its energy and allow all of that, just imagine all of that to drain out of you so you can find your center because it's easy to get lost in all of the nonsense that's going on.
Very true. Very true. A lot of nonsense. I like that word used. So I wanted to read because you said something. I saw this on Facebook this morning. Someone that I'm friends with wrote, "I am extremely busy doing not very much while feeling very overwhelmed."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, how appropriate right now. I think a lot of people are in that same space.
Mm-hmm.
It's odd.
There's just so much going on with so many people that, and you know, we're all connected. So being that we're all connected, even if you're not out there actually doing those things, we're all connected to those things that are happening. So we're all in some sense experiencing it energetically.
True.
Grounding is key for me personally.
Let me ask you two moms, what are your challenges right now with school starting? You both have the age children, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And so what's I don't know actually too much about what's happening with that in this town. I know it started, people are trying to do online, but what's happening around there for each of you guys? Any challenges around that, or it's pretty smooth and it's working?
Well, my son, he is currently in preschool, and so it's in person, and we don't have to worry about masks because he's 3. But I can speak on behalf of my sister who is in California, and she has 3 children, and it's just been an absolute nightmare. The schools are not opening, and she would have to do homeschool, and then the governor's trying to do this bill where it would be illegal to hire a tutor for your child at home. So it's just all this craziness going on. So I'm blessed to be here in Sedona where the school's actually open, but I know a lot of people are just, because it's like, how do you work when you have all your kids at home, you know? So yeah. I know that's something that a lot of moms are actually going through.
That's really interesting that you say that they're trying to make it so that you can't hire tutors, because my friend out in California, he works for this company that's what they do. They send tutors out to people. Like that's a whole business. So I'll have to ask him about if that's actually even going to pass, or why they would.
Hopefully not.
You know?
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It doesn't, but it goes along the lines of all the control.
Yes.
You know, all the different controls that are out there right now. So, yeah. With my teenagers, both are teens, 13, 16, homeschooling / unschooling, the younger, and the 16-year-old kind of vacillated on, do I go back to school online until I can go to campus, or do I unschool or homeschool as well? And so he gave it a shot because of his posse, his friends, his group. And he's online right now with the high school here, and we are feeling it out. But yeah, it's not fun. I noticed some of the schools are giving dates and times, and some of the schools are being very vague. I prefer the vagueness, which is funny because the timekeeper that I am, but I prefer the vagueness because do we really know? I mean, do we honestly really know what's going to happen tomorrow, next week? Nobody knows. And then you see the things that come in saying that schools in Georgia had teachers and children come down with COVID right after opening again, and what's true, what's not. Again, with the media, it's hard to tell. And so it is very, very difficult to navigate that particular challenge. Luckily, both of my kids are old enough that I can come here to work and do something while they're at home working on something, and they can wait until I'm back home to ask questions if they need to, or give me a call or whatever. But it's difficult. And I know a lot of people who are out there are having big challenges trying to make that decision. What do we do now that school is either opening or coming to opening time? Because I know back east it's more closer to September, I think. So yeah, another challenge for sure.
Yeah, I was discussing with my daughter that I was thankful that she's old enough that I don't have to go through this right now. And my niece is young enough, she's 4, that I think my brother and his wife they're just homeschooling, you know, they've been doing that. So they were going to put her in school in kindergarten this fall, but I think they're just going to hang on and stick it out one more year. But they have that luxury. When I homeschooled, I had that luxury because I worked from home. So that's definitely a challenge for working parents. But yeah, that's why I was asking you guys, because I'm like, I'm out of that. Thank you.
Well, let me just say, breathing exercises, stretching, getting out on the land, being in the water, body work, chatting with friends, connecting. Those are all so important during these times, because otherwise I think a lot of people would go crazy. It really did feel for those first few months like everybody was just really locked down, shut in, locked down, not able to go. Then we started to realize going out into nature is good, being outside is fine, all of that is happening. So I noticed that I practice a lot of the things that I learned through here, through my friends, through the practitioners whom I know and love, practice all of that, all of it daily, because otherwise I think I'd go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're pretty lucky to be able to be here in Sedona while all that was happening, because like you were saying, you felt like everybody was locked down, and I didn't find that. Like, it didn't stop me from going hiking all the time, getting out into nature. It wasn't a thing. It didn't really bother the kids I live with, because they were still all connected to their friends because they're gamers. They're like, cool, we have to stay home. And so there were different challenges that sort of skipped our house in regards to all that. We all were still able to do the things that we loved that got our energies up. Although I did at least once a week try and kick them out of the house so that they go for a hike. I'm like, you guys can't just sit on the computer for all this time. I mean, they can, and they were, but I'm like, get some fresh air. Go out, get some fresh air. So they ended up starting to do that as a weekly thing, like, oh, okay, we're gonna go out on a nature date. So that was I think if they when they go to look back at this time, they're gonna be like, we were paid to stay home and play video games. It was okay. Versus whenever they start talking to other people, they'll find vastly different stories. Their friends that were stuck at college or couldn't go back to college, or in between, okay, I can't go to mom's house, can't go to grandma's house, what do I do? Have my stuff here. It was complicated for other people. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nature for a fact. And then now we have the challenge of, whoops, there was a sewage spill and can't go into the water.
That's so ridiculous. It's so hard for us here in Sedona, you know? I mean, that's a getaway for the locals. It's a getaway for people in Phoenix. It's a getaway to be able to enjoy our creek and to have 20,000 gallons or so spilled into our lovely creek that we would recreate in. That was hard. That was a really difficult thing to take, especially the day after having just been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
when I found out about it, I was luckily already on antibiotics. So I'm like, oh, all right. I guess if anything was going to be an adverse effect, then maybe this will already have taken care of it. So even that, like, how does that even happen? Because same thing. I was swimming in it like the day before it happened. You sent me the thing that it did happen. It actually, I did some calculations and figured it was probably all washed out by the next day, and we went swimming. But in the back of my head, I'm like, well, I'm on antibiotics, so it's fine. But then, yeah, future days, we went in the canyon, and not even in Oak Creek. We're like, we don't even necessarily want to be below Slide Rock. Let's just find somewhere else. But so in that challenge, you shift around, and we just found all these new places to explore that we wouldn't have necessarily checked out if that hadn't happened. So
Gave you new adventures.
new adventures, yes. Challenge brings new adventures.
There you go. I like that. I like that. I was on a webinar the other day where they used the word pivot.
Mm-hmm.
So just like you just said, you know, you turn, you change, you do something different. And it really made me realize how many people have had to pivot, be it in business, in their home life, however it looks, they had to pivot and make that change. And it does. It brings obviously new challenges at some point, but it brings new adventures and something different. And maybe that's what this is all about. Maybe we just all had to be shook up a bit, right? We needed to look at things differently and see things differently. And quite honestly, it's kind of like going way out to come way back in, because where do we need to be? We need to be taking care of this, right? And as you make those changes and do those pivots and take care of what you've got in your own little microcosm, then the effect, it's like the butterfly effect, right? You change, you pivot, you do this, and it's going to affect that next thing. And it just keeps going out, and it can go back out again. And it's been an interesting psychological experience in many ways, isn't it? When you take a look at the bigger picture and how people are handling all the different challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you were just explaining that about how you kind of have to balance and take care of this inside, so because the inner reflects the outer, and I think so many people have ignored that for years, and the wake-up call for a lot of people who didn't live like that. As you're explaining it, what's behind you is like the heart and then the roots. So whatever you're like putting out from your heart is getting rooted. And Faye, you were talking about like grounding. Mm-hmm. And so even grounding the energies that are coming, there were solar flares, there's some serious big portals that are opening. It's still up until tomorrow, still the Lionsgate energy at the moment. And Perseids, by the way, if anybody's up really early this coming tomorrow dawn, you're going to see lots of meteors. The Perseids are happening.
I'll be up. I'll be outside. I'll be checking it out.
In our area, the moon might be a little too bright, but if it's not up at that time, we'll be able to see a lot of them. But in the grand scheme of things, if you're really concentrating inwardly to almost put out your etheric subtle antenna, then the grounding and the roots of wherever you're going to go is going to give you information. I don't know if it was actually from the movie Avatar, but there was this image that I have of all those trees giving information, and all those trees are by the roots connected to all the other trees around the world. And so you can tap into that. Yeah, by, like you were saying, Faye, just like by receiving, from giving trees hugs, you can receive information and the energy you need. And some days I'll be hiking and I'll do that. And then some days I'll be out there and I'm giving it. Some days I'll be wanting to hug a tree to receive, and other trees will call me to be like, hey, I need a little love. So I'll be like giving. And it's just this balance, this ebb and flow of kind of fluidity. If you are attuned to kind of work through the noise. I can't say shut out the noise because it's going to be there, but like work through the noise for the information that is pertinent to your life and to the life of what you want to build around you.
Mhm.
That's what I got.
I
That
like
was
it.
beautiful.
Go ahead, Faye.
Oh no, I said that was beautiful. But I also have to go pick up my son. So I'm going to hop in and then hop out, but thank you for having me.
Thank you. We'll see you next month for sure on the next one.
Yeah.
Thanks, honey. Okay.
We're back to a rectangle. We went from a pyramid to a rectangle discussion.
It's a pyramid chat and a rectangle chat.
Could be.
Well, I think we are going to sign off. It's a shorter one than last month, but we have several more who want to join us next month. So should be a lot of fun. We'll see what's up in the world, see what's out there, see what kind of challenges we need to address next time. And we appreciate you being here. So take care. And as always, bye, Wendy.
Bye, Tasha.